You're learning to be a programmer. How do you truly understand development? What are the steps? Anyone who's been following my channel for any length of time knows the answer already. And the answer is you just got to go out there and write code. You have to take that leap of faith as someone who's learning development. And you got to get away from the tutorials. You got to get away from watching videos, and you just got to start building real projects. Not your own projects where you kind of make things up as you go. I'm talking about getting out there, talking with people, whether it be a local small business, whatever it may be. You need to go out there and flex your coding muscles, because a true professional developer does much more than just write code. They break down complex problems into simple components, and then they figure out how to make it work. I'm not saying that there's no place for tutorials. I think, though, they should be extremely limited. So after you get your fundamentals of coding down, what you ought to do is then maybe 1 or 2 tutorials max. Then it's time to take off the training wheels and to jump into the game and start coding for real. You have to understand, when you are doing tutorials or following along in a course, you're only exercising part of your brain that needs to be exercised to become a professional developer. A professional developer is almost like a detective. They got to figure out things, and they got to break down problems, and that only can be developed, those skills can only be developed with real world practice. So you got to get out of the tutorial hell. You got to get out of that whole space. My opinion about learning to code and software development and professional development is based on my experience going back to 1994 when I started writing professional code. And I've been through tutorial hell. I've been through that process where, well, at the time you didn't get videos on the web to learn how to code. You would buy these thick computer books. So I would buy tons and tons of these thick computer books. In fact, in the 90s, I was spending $3,000 to $4,000 a year on these books, and I've read hundreds of these books. They helped in terms of my broad scope of knowledge, but a lot of it was getting into advanced theoretical stuff, which, you know, you can do, but it has to be mixed in with a lot of practical work. The analogy I like to make is mixed martial arts or boxing. If you want to learn how to fight, you can't just hit the heavy bag and do drills all the time. You actually have to step in the ring and actually fight for real. Same thing with coding. You have to get in there and you got to write and build real things, come across bugs, figure them out. What you're going to discover, by the way, is that much of the work in development has little to do with writing the code, to be honest with you. A lot of it is debugging. A lot of it is configuration. A lot of it is figuring out how to actually solve the problem, figuring out which libraries to use, which frameworks to use, if any. There's so many different ways these days. We have so many different options as developers in terms of what we can use to get the job done. There's many competing solutions. That's one of the toughest part of the job, trying to figure out what technologies to use to build out your solution.